within arm's reach. Feel free to grab it and continue on. Tonight, we're going to be focusing on Proverbs 19. This is our second week in Proverbs 19, and so it's kind of a rare thing to do, but I would like to give a little bit of a review. Oftentimes, as I've often said, that these proverbs are singular and isolated and independent of each other, but very rarely, and not super rarely, but rarely they connect. And especially into the latter proverbs do you not see much connection. But here in chapter 19, we have a bit of an anomaly with the first 9 verses clearly being connected. And seeing a train of thought within these proverbs that is building. So, if I could just review a little bit here. So last week we looked at Proverbs 19, 1, 2, and 3. And in those verses, we were introduced to 2 characters, if you will. And Proverbs is full of characters. They're usually described by the attributes of wisdom or scornful, or as we're going to see here tonight, poor and foolish. These were the 2 characters we saw, the poor man and the fool, if you will. And what we learned about them was pretty simple. Look at verse 1. It says, "Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity, and he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool." We learned simply, it is better to be a poor man with integrity than to be a fool. And a fool in verse 1 is described as someone who is having perverse speech. We talked a little bit about perverseness or being perverted. Often when we think of perverted, we go to locker room talk, if you will, or, I'm trying to think of another delightful phrase on how to say it. Potty humor, there's a word. But it's so much more than that. Perverse here means crooked speech. It means false speech. It means distorted speech. Well, potty humor, locker room talk. It can be those sort of things. So much more can fall underneath the category of perverse. So, better to be a poor man with integrity than to be a fool. And a fool is a man who has perverse speech. Verse 2, "Also that the soul be without knowledge, it is not good. And he that hasteth with his feet sinneth." Here's where we see a direct connection, where it uses the word also. That verse 2 word also points us back or pulls us back to verse 1. And here in this verse, we learn that one of the root causes of foolishness is the lack of knowledge, which causes the fool to act hastily, to run to sin without thinking. And, we often see this. This is a true statement. We often look back at the times in our life when we move too quickly on something. And the reason was because we were not thinking, or we were not using the knowledge that we had, or we were lacking knowledge. Those are really the only 2 reasons why somebody is moving hastily, because they're not thinking properly, or they're not informed about what's going on. Verse 3 says, "The foolishness of man perverteth his way." There's that word again. "And his heart fretteth against the Lord." Verse 3 teaches us that the fool's way is perverse, not just his speech, but his way. And those walk hand in hand. You cannot separate someone's speech from their actions. You cannot separate somebody's actions from their thinking. They're all connected. And we want to compartmentalize these things sometimes. And for that, we always end up falling short. So his way is perverse, just like his speech. And we really see the second root cause of the fool's problem here is because he is fretting against God, against the Lord. And that word fret means to be angry at. He's angry at God. And that is true. A lot of foolishness, a lot of foolish action is based upon anger. I'm doing this because I'm mad and I don't care and I want to punish or I want to get somebody upset. I think of Jacob and Esau. Esau was extremely upset when Jacob not only stole his birthright, but stole his blessing. And when nothing really happened to correct Jacob for his follies, Esau became very bitter towards his father and mother, and in result went out and married somebody who they did not approve of, being the daughter of Ishmael. A lot of bad things, a lot of foolish things have been done because anger resides beneath the surface. So this is what we learned last week. Now, in verses 4 through 9, we see the connection continue. We return to the poor man and see his plight here in verse number 4. Verse 4 says, "Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor," see there he is again, "is separate from his neighbor," or separated from his neighbor. I want to skip over verse 5 for a moment and look down at verse number 6. "Many will entreat the favor of the prince, and every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. And all the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with his words, yet are wanting to him." I'm reading these verses because I want you to see the connection here. Because these are practically saying the same thing. Verses 4, 6, and 7 are practically saying the same thing. And how I would describe verses 4, 6, and 7 would be these proverbs are about social behavior of those around people in economic situations. The social behavior of people who are around individuals with different economic situations. What do I mean? Here's how people act around poor people, and here's how people act around rich people. And you're going to notice they're different. Now, if I could categorize the three verses, verse number 4 is a generalized statement about both. It's a generalized statement about the poor man and the rich man. Verse number 6 explains more into the rich man's point of view, and verse number 7 explains more into the poor man's point of view. But you see these connected. But you also see verse 5, which doesn't fit. And makes you kind of wonder what in the world false witnesses or heresy have to do with that. So I'm just kind of laying out the thoughts right now. But let me go back here to verse 4 and look at it again, and it's not hard to glean the fruit from this one, all right? "Wealth maketh many friends." Yeah, that's true, isn't it? It seems like I've never met a lonely rich person. If there's a lonely rich person, it's because they've isolated themselves from the world. Because if you are wealthy, people will be breaking down the door to be your buddy. Why is that? And then the poor is separated from his neighbor. Wealth is a magnet, and poverty is a repellent. It's like spraying off and the bugs not wanting to be around you. Whereas wealth draws people in. Poverty repels. Money gathers people, and no money scatters people. Why is that? Why is that? Why does everybody want to be around the wealthy and the famous and the powerful? And why does nobody want to hang out with the poor man? Why? Well, you can think of a couple of thoughts. Look over at Ecclesiastes chapter 7 for a second. One book over. Ecclesiastes chapter number 7. And I see one reason here that I'll look at, but if I could give just a couple reasons. Why do people hang out with people that have money while they don't hang out with people that don't? Well, money brings a sense of stability. I mean, we have to agree with that, do we not? Does money bring a sense of stability? Whether it brings stability or not is probably leaning on the no department, because true stability does not come from money. True stability comes from the Lord. But it brings a sense of stability, does it not? Well, I have money. I'm going to be okay. Sure you are. Sure you are. Nobody that's rich ever has any problems. You're right. They never have any issues. They never struggle with any vices. But money does bring a sense of stability. And as we see here in Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse number 12, Solomon even admits that money is a defense. He says in verse 12, for wisdom is a defense. It protects you, it blocks things, it guards. And money is a defense. Now, often we look at wisdom and we look at money and we see them on the opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to what we would call stability. But here he's saying, yeah, if you have money, it's going to give you some sort of defense, or at least a sense of it. But excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. See, there's a difference. Does money give life? No, money does not give life. In fact, as Paul said, money is the root of all evil. Money can meet physical needs. Maybe that's why people want to be around wealthy people. Money is a sign of blessing in the Jewish culture. Maybe that's a sign of why people want to be there. Money is a sign of wisdom. If somebody is rich, they're blessed, and they have much wisdom, and they can be able to figure things out. People are going to want my opinion and know how I got rich, and I'm worthy to listen to. And maybe you can just say the lack of money is the opposite. To be poor is a sign of foolishness. But is it really? Or is money a sign of wisdom? Well, people think it is, but is it really? A lack of money means your physical needs are not met, or maybe not. Is it a sign of blessing to have money and a sign of cursing to be poor? These are the things. But I think basically when we could say, why does money attract like a magnet and poverty repel like off the spray for bugs? People are drawn to power and success. All of us are. And those that possess that power and success are forced into social situations. The king is not without his line of requesters, and the prodigal son has no friends except the pigs. What is money right now? Proverbs 14:20. Turn over there for a second, and you will see a synonymous proverb here. Proverbs 14:20. The poor is hated even of his own neighbor, but the rich hath many friends. This is practically saying the same thing. If anything, it is highlighting the poverty part and giving you a more negative. In Proverbs 19, it just says he's separated from his neighbor. Here it says his neighbor hates his guts because he's poor. Why would he hate him? We'll talk a little bit about that. Back here in Proverbs 19, verse number 5, let's look at one that doesn't seem to fit. Here it says, a false witness shall not be unpunished, and he that speaketh lies shall not escape. What do you notice about the two couplings here? Okay, always these proverbs basically have two sides to them. What do you notice about the two sides? I think what I notice and what I see is that it's practically saying the same thing on both sides. It is doing nothing but echoing the whole idea that untruth or false speech will be punished. A false witness, which means an untrue testimony, will not be clean or unpunished. He that speaketh lies, falsehoods, shall not escape, shall not be released, shall not rescue. This proverb is doubling down on the fate of liars. Now, think about, why is he being so hard on liars? Because we're not. People lie all the time. We're kind of used to it. Isn't it funny when the news talks about so-and-so politician lied? I'm like, why is that news? Why is that news? That happens all the time. Oh, you're surprised that that's what they all do. Well, why are you so surprised? Oh, no, so-and-so said a lie. Don't all politicians lie? Or are you just saying he's not as good about it as somebody else is? Or he's more blatant about it? We see lies every day. We are completely bombarded with lies everywhere we go when you think about it. Are we not? And so here we see this doubling down of lies. Whoa, calm down. It's just a lie is what we're expected to think. No. Lie's a big deal. Lie's a big deal. Lies get people sent to hell. Lies get people damaged in this life. Believing lies messes up families, countries, nations, etc., etc. Literally, you can trace all rebellion to believing a lie about something. What do you mean by that? Somebody says, I'm going to steal. That's my form of rebellion. I'm going to steal something. In order to steal something, you have to believe a lie. Either nobody cares, or I'm going to get away with it, or it's okay, and none of those things are true. There's always a lie attached to a sin. And so for us to say, well, lies are no big deal, so-and-so politician lied, no big deal. I mean, we tell lies all the time. Sometimes we got to tell lies to get ourselves out of a situation, and we're going to lie for good reasons, or we tell it. Here he doubles down on the fact that if you lie, you're going to face it. You're not going to escape. You're not going to get away with it. Now, I just find this doubling down proverb in and of itself a wise thing to do. I think sometimes we, as proclaimers of truth, if you will, say things in a way that people don't quite understand. And so the doubling down, if you will, the repeating of it, is actually helping the fact. I think you could, if you wanted to, I think you could describe each half as what's the difference between them. Even though they're saying the same thing, is there a difference between the first half and the second half? How would you describe the first half versus the second half? And I would say that the first half seems more formal, does it not? He that is a false witness shall not be punished. I mean, false witness sounds kind of like a more formal way to say liar, liar, pants on fire. Okay? But the second one here seems less formal. And if so, more direct, because that thing that says, shall not escape, I mean, whoa. It's almost like getting in your face a little bit. And so if you could even describe these two sides in the manner in which they speak the same truth, I think it's wise. I think we should always seek to define and redefine what we're saying. Me as a communicator of the gospel, and me as a communicator as a pastor to the truth, I want people to understand what I'm saying. What's the point if I get up here and I speak in a way that nobody gets it? And we have to understand that speaking biblical truth, especially to people that are not saved and don't understand biblical truth, we have to learn in a way to communicate where they can understand it as well. And so if we're using big, $15, whatever words, however you want to say it, big flowery speech and talking about sanctification and the ransom and born again, and what does all these things mean? And so actually doubling down and using two ways to say the same thing is a great lesson in communication. I think the point is clear here at verse number 5, don't you? You're not going to get away with it. There's no way to wiggle around it. It's very simple. Liars will be punished. And do we not see that all over the scripture, even in Revelation chapter number 21, talking about those that meet the second death, fearful, unbelieving, abominable, etc., etc. And all liars shall have their part in the lake of fire. Meaning that all liars are going to meet their fate. And a lie will send you to hell. That's not what he wants. He's willing to pay for that, cover that, remove that. That's what Jesus is willing to do. But if you want to, float your own boat and try to get by with your lie will not be unpunished. But what's it doing there? What's it doing in the middle of this discourse about poor man, foolish man, and now even in this little microcosm discourse about being poor versus wealthy? I don't know. But I will say it's mentioned in verse number 9, again, word for word. Look at verse 9 of chapter 19. It's the exact same proverb. I mean, nothing's changed about it. Why? Why is that there? Why is that there? Obviously, we're talking about foolishness, and lying is a part of foolishness, no doubt about it. Lies can make you poor. Lies are something that wealthy people like to use whenever they can. Lies are something that all people use. But for whatever reason, the Lord puts this verse in here, doubles down on it, and then he doubles down by making it in verse 5 and verse 9, which is interesting. Back to verse number 6 and 7 here, as we focus again on this idea of economic status affecting social situations. Verse number 6, many will entreat the favor of a prince. And every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. Every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. This is focusing on the wealthy. Now, the rich man is not without his share of friends and his share of phonies. Now, this is the interesting thing, because the word friend here simply just means associate or companion, or it can even mean brother. It has a wide variety of definitions. How would you define a true friend? And this is really what this means. I mean, some people say, well, friend's just somebody I know on Facebook, right? I don't even know those people. And maybe I used to know those people, but I don't know them anymore. I was at Walmart yesterday, and I bumped into a friend from middle school and high school. I realized real quick I had no idea who this guy is anymore. He does not know me. Friendships come and friendships go. Just because you were a friend with somebody 20 years ago, does that mean you're a friend with them now? What makes a true friend? And I would say the Bible definition of a friend is someone who is spiritual in the sense that they have accepted Christ as their Savior and they are progressing in that life. They're asking God on a regular basis to be a part of their life. Somebody is spiritually strong as a believer and they are encouraging you. A true friend will encourage you. As it says in, let's look at it. Proverbs 27. I'll show it to you. There it is. Proverbs chapter 27. There are several references to a friend in Proverbs chapter 27. And over in verse number 17, it says, iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. And so this idea of iron sharpening iron, meaning that two similar things will have a sharpening effect. It doesn't say iron sharpens aluminum, because iron does not sharpen aluminum. Iron is a stronger metal. But if you have two items that are similar and they brush up against each other, there is a positive result. Okay? What does that mean? A friend is someone who is a Christian just like you are, trying to grow closer to God just like you are, and they're going to push you and they're going to encourage you just like you're going to do them. That's what a true friend is. But when it's talking about in Proverbs chapter 19 that the rich man or the prince, man, he's got a lot of friends, what's the quality of this friend? What do you mean by a friend? Somebody will butter you up and say the nice things about you, or somebody just trying to use you to get something for themselves? Because it appears that that's about the depth of these friendships. In fact, it's probably true that the richer you are, or the more positive, the richer you are, or the more powerful or influential you are, the chances of you having real friends are smaller and smaller. Not that there aren't associates, people you interact with for different reasons, but a true friend, which as the Bible also describes, sticketh closer than a brother. It says here, so the rich man is not without a share of his friends. Proverbs 29:26 says, many seek the ruler's favor, but every man's judgment cometh from the Lord. Proverbs 16:50 says, in the light of the king's countenance is life, and his favor is as a cloud in the latter rain, meaning he's a blessing. I think the key to being rich and trying to decipher through all the phonies and quote-unquote friends that entreat you are understanding what it means to be poor. Just like Joseph. Joseph was the second in command in Egypt at the end of his life. But before he was at the second in command of Egypt, where was he? He was at the bottom of the totem pole in prison. And before that, he was a servant. And before that, he was a brother that was thrown in a pit. Probably Joseph's greatest asset as a ruler, as a wealthy man, was knowing what it means to be poor. And that's probably where we need to learn from this. Because if you are a rich man, I mean, this Proverbs 19:6 is not trying to teach you anything as much as it's trying to inform you about things. This is an informative proverb. Hey, just so you know, princes, rulers, wealthy people, they're going to be entreated by many. And the word entreat means to rub till it's warm. And that's kind of a visual picture of what happens. People are like a genie in a lamp, you know. If we ever found a lamp with a genie in it, which we won't find, but if there ever was such a thing, we probably expect it to be warm because it was rubbed so much. Because many people entreated that. And that's kind of this. People come up to these rulers, hey, give me this, what can I do? And they try to use these gifts to manipulate, if you will, or to bless, possibly. But this is an informative proverb. Number 7 is an informative proverb as well. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. All the brethren. All the brethren. How much more do his friends go far from him? Yeah. If his brothers hate him, his own family hates him, how much farther are his friends going? He pursueth them with words. Hey, friends, come back to me. Yet they are wanting. Or no. It literally means no. No to him. No to him. You think about the prodigal son. Got down to nothing. How was his brother's relationship with him when he came home? Luke chapter number 15 makes it very plain that he was angry at his brother. And he was angry at his father for loving his brother and taking his brother back in. And the brother said, the older brother said about the younger, said, lo, these many years do I serve thee, father, neither transgressed I at any time thy commandment. Yet thou never gavest me a kid or a feast, that I may make merry with my friends. But as soon as thy son was come, which hath devoured thy living with harlots, thou hast killed for him the fatted calf. You see the poor being hated by their brethren. Now, a lot of things could go into that. The poor consistently seek for help, do they not? The poor consistently seek for help. And before they ask strangers, and before they get to asking friends, where do they usually start? With the family. And with the family is probably the most jaded group the poor man has. Because he consistently goes to them first. And they are the ones that have helped him first, or her first. And probably put themselves out on a limb more than anybody else. And probably the reason why they hate him is because they've been burned time and time again. It makes sense. I think we can understand why the brethren of the poor would, as it says here, make him an enemy. Or maybe it's vice versa. They are made an enemy. And then the friends also. Look at Proverbs 18:23. 18:23. It says right there, pretty simply, the poor useth entreaties, meaning they ask. And the rich, they answer them roughly. I mean, I've never seen a poor person that doesn't ask. I've never seen a homeless person without a sign. It's kind of part. That's what they do. It's kind of part of the MO. If you're poor and you're homeless, you ask. You ask. If you have nothing, you ask. Which is what you're supposed to do. I think we can all agree that helping the poor is an unnatural reaction. I mean, just for argument's sake, debate's sake, the person that stands by Walmart with a sign next to the oncoming traffic that is asking for help, what percentage of the cars or vehicles that go by do you think actually give that person something? And this is not to say what is right or wrong, but this is just to think that, yeah, it's probably the vast majority that just drive by. In fact, it is the vast majority that just drive by and don't help. Why? Why is that? Well, we could have all sorts of reasons. Well, I don't know that person. I don't know what they're going to do. And my own personal policy is to never give, well, to rarely give money to somebody that I don't personally know unless I feel that the God is telling me to. I'd much rather buy somebody groceries or buy a family diapers or make a purchase of something that is a need than to give money to somebody that may or may not use it rightfully or wrongfully. Now, if you give money to people no matter what, that's between you and God. And what they do with that money is between them and God. You have to understand that as well. But if I'm going to help somebody, I want to try to help them in a certain way that actually kind of fixes the problem, more or less. That's how I think about it. What's got to be different. And we can understand, and I think we can all say that helping a poor person is an unnatural thing to do. It's not normal. Over in James chapter number 2, we see a story of a man who comes into a congregation. He's naked, he's destitute of daily food, and there's somebody there that says, "Hey, don't bother me right now. I'm just going to pray for you if you want me to fill." And while that is atrocious, that is not too far from where we are in our normal lives. The application of this verse is to do what is unnatural and try to help the poor person. Try to help them. And sometimes we even struggle with praying for the poor person when we see them. Okay, you may not be able to give them $1, you may not be able to buy them a meal, but you could pray for them. And if we're honest, sometimes we even struggle with that. That's even something that we know we should be doing. Do you pray for every poor person you see on the side of the road? You know, and you can see how unnatural of a thing this is. But David says in Psalm 41:1, "Blessed is he that considereth the poor." Just to consider the poor. Not to help the poor, not to meet the need of the poor, but just to consider them. You're blessed. Think about that. Just to consider them. The Lord will deliver him, talking about the one that considers the poor person in time of trouble. The Lord will preserve him and keep him alive, and he shall be blessed upon the earth, and thou wilt not deliver him into the will of his enemies. And so this is important. In fact, we're going to see this later on in the Proverbs. Proverbs 19:17. Look at that. Proverbs 19:17. It will say later on. We'll get to it. "He that hath pity upon the poor lendeth unto the Lord, and that which he hath given he will pay him again." Think about that. So to help the poor, is it a good thing or bad thing? I know they don't look nice. Their family hates them. Their friends run away from them. But Jesus did something that was unnatural, yet spiritually, when we walk with him, is natural, and that is to help them. So I think what we can gain from this is maybe we just better make sure we consider the poor. Consider the poor. And to consider the poor is one of the greatest investments you as an individual can make. And to lend to the poor, God will take care of it. It's a wonderful thing. Verse number 8, I will conclude with this. "He that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul, and he that keepeth understanding shall find good." What does this proverb have to do with the isolation of the poor and the popularity of the rich? This is the answer to both situations. What if I'm a rich man and people are swarming me? What if I'm a poor man and nobody wants to get near me? Verse number 8. "He that getteth wisdom loveth his own soul, and he that keepeth understanding shall find good." This is the major doctrine, idea, theme of the book of Proverbs, is this idea of getting wisdom. Now, a couple things about these definitions that you don't see unless you look at the other languages. Getteth means to build or procure. Wisdom doesn't mean skillful spiritual aspects that we usually see. It is actually the word that's often translated heart, which literally means he that builds his heart. He that builds his heart. Now tell me what that means. Now this is not talking about following your heart. This is not talking about believing in your heart. This is talking about building your heart in a spiritual, biblical way. If you do that, you are loving your own soul. And he that keepeth understanding, there's the wisdom word, intelligence, shall find good. This is what keeps on being pushed and pushed and pushed in the book of Proverbs. Wisdom, 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 wisdom. Get it. It is the cheat code to every situation. Learning spiritual skill, getting God's wisdom from him to apply in this world, living these things out, living Bible truth, is the cheat code to being a poor man, has no friends, and being a rich man that has too many friends. It takes all ends of the spectrum. What is your problem that you're struggling with? What is the issue that is difficult? What is the hard thing that you're constantly butting your head up against? Wisdom is the answer. And wisdom is simply putting God's truth into action. If we can put God's truth into action, if we can find a Bible verse to live, we will come out of the poverty and we will be able to handle the wealth. Hear instruction and be wise, refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watcheth daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. Whoso findeth me, wisdom says, findeth life, and shall obtain favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. And then, verse 9, false witness shall not be unpunished. He that speaketh lies shall perish. Almost like it's saying, don't lie if you have wisdom or not. Or don't lie to yourself about where you are. Don't lie don't lie about the situation. You need wisdom. Agree with it, obtain it, and move on. Verse 10 we'll look at next week. The light is not seemly for a fool, much less for a servant to have rule over princes. We'll talk more about foolishness next week. But as we conclude, let's just ask the Lord to bless. Yes, sir.
A question about verse 8, real quick.
Yes, sir. Fire away.
Loveth his own soul. For some reason, though, that screams pride. Can you explain, help me out here?
Yeah, and it can be interpreted that way. I mean, just like he that getteth wisdom, and like I said, the definition, he that builds his own heart, loveth his own soul. The whole thing kind of breeds pride a little bit, but you have to understand that he's talking about this in a biblical sense. Okay? How can somebody love their own soul in a biblical sense? What's wrong with that? It's mainly just saying you're taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. Just like if I were to say, you don't need to drink or don't need to smoke because you need to take care of your own body. You need to love your own body. Is that necessarily prideful? When somebody says you need to take care of your body and love your body, well, it depends on what you mean by that. Love my body for what purpose? Or love my soul for what purpose? I think people should love their souls in the sense that you better make sure it's saved and on its way to heaven. Because if you don't love your own soul, you just might wind up where you not want to be. Okay? So it's the motive on why. Love my soul that I may help somebody else. Okay? And I do agree with you that it can be interpreted that way, but I don't think we're supposed to. If Mickey Mouse was saying it, yeah, I'd question Mickey Mouse's motive. But if Solomon's saying it, I think he's trying to get us to think about it in the right realm, or in the right way. And so, love your soul, obviously, not just for the betterment of self, but for the betterment of others, is what I would say. Anybody else? Good question. Anybody else have a question or a comment? All right, a couple of announcements, and then I will release you. Thank you for being patient. Speaking of the poor, this Saturday we're going down to the Lighthouse Mission for our monthly outreach at 4:30. If you're interested, sign up. I think they have the whole team assembled, but I think they need maybe one more is what they're looking for. This Sunday, chili cook-off. Brother Derek Thomas will be here. No evening service. We'll do a Sunday school morning, afternoon, and then no evening service on Sunday. And then Thanksgiving is around. All right, let's have a word of prayer and then we'll be dismissed. Thanks for coming tonight. Church on Wednesday night. Father, thank you for the chance to be here and to look at these things. Lord, whether we be poor or rich is truly up to you. And bottom line is, Lord, wherever we are on an economic scale, may we do right now with you. May we wisely manage the things that you have given us for the furtherance of the gospel and for your kingdom. May we not allow foolishness to reign. May you reign in our hearts. And I pray that you will watch over us tonight, bring us back here safely on Sunday for worship. In Jesus' name. Amen. What's your present, please?